you're trying to shove some of the walls of traditional understandings of this aside and really say, how can we reimagine what spiritual community can look like and function like in some very still traditional kind of areas of the world?
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I call myself a paradigm shifter.
Hey, everybody, I'm Dr. Kristen Donnelly, one of the good doctors of Abbey Research. And at Abbey Research, we believe that curiosity can change the world. Because if we're all honest, it's the only thing that ever has. Humans asking, what if I did this? What if I go over the hill? What if I ask that girl to dance? All of these what if, I wonder if, all of those questions are how we move forward and how we progress as a species. And this series is in service of that. It's called Welcome to My World. And I get the incredible opportunity to talk to people all over the place who are different than me, which, spoiler alert, is everybody, about something in their lives that if we all knew about it, we would be richer. Our questions could be deeper, our curiosity could go further, and we could all have fuller human experiences. And let me tell you, today's guest is absolutely no exception. I am so honored to be joined by my fellow Baylor Bear and dear friend and fellow BJC fellow. For those of people who watch this channel, you've already met Sophie Herscher and a few others. Aurelia, let me just say her full name because it's so beautiful. Aurelia Dávila Pratt is the lead pastor of Peace of Christ Church in Round Rock, Texas, which is a little bit north of Austin, to give you guys some geography. And she's the co-host of the Nuance Tea Podcast, which is fantastic and will be linked in the show notes. And she is redefining what it means to be a clergywoman of color. It's such an incredibly important question, not only the of color part, but the clergywoman part. For anyone who doesn't know, only about 13% of the pulpits in the United States are occupied by women, even though 65% of the pews are. So having conversations about what being a clergywoman looks like is important. It's even more important to have it as a clergywoman of color. And I'm so honored that Aurelia has taken that mantle because her voice is so important. Her book, A Brown Girl's Epiphany, is currently available for pre-order. It releases in September, and the link to pre-order it is below. Aurelia, thank you so much for joining me, dear.
Thanks for having me. We could just chat all day. I feel
oh my
like.
gosh. I know. I was already like, you said some things before we started recording. I was like, oh, that should be on the podcast. So let's start with a little bit of, if you wouldn't mind breaking down your story. What brought you to Peace of Christ? Kind of, can you give us your journey in that way?
Well, it's not that exciting. But in seminary, I was finishing up. I didn't really know what I was going to do. And there was a little church. There's a gal there whose job it is to help students find jobs outside of seminary. So she knew that I was headed to the Austin area after graduation. My husband works in the tech world, and he was doing a startup and already driving pretty much every day. Wow. So we were headed this way. And that was in 2012. I guess the school had been notified by a startup church that was going to be happening, and they had sent their concept in, and it was in the area. So I checked it out. I was really intrigued. The thing that intrigued me the most about the church was that it seemed very collaborative and team-oriented, as opposed to there being like one central figure. Yeah. And I just was really excited by that. And so I ended up signing on to the church. Of course, you sign on to churches and you do not get what you sign up for. So yeah. We really, I would say maybe we're not always as team oriented as we are now. We really have spent the last 10 years trying to lean into that. But in so many ways, and there's still so much work to do. Like, for example, I'm the lead pastor. I work with two other pastors. we share a lot of the load together, but you know, everyone always contacts me. Like,
Right.
even I haven't always been the lead pastor. People just always sort of kind of highlight and center that role.
Right.
And so even in that, that's sort of been something that, you know, I'm learning to try to redefine what it looks like and what it means to lead, you know. And so all that to say, I was led to Peace of Christ Church. I'm now processing this, realizing this for the first time in like 10 years, because that was 10 years ago, because I was so intrigued by that.
Yeah.
And now 10 years later, I'm realizing, wow, I've always been intrigued by that. And, you know, it's hard in a church setting to live into truly being a team, truly sharing the load, not even just between pastors, between the whole community, everyone showing up, and there being reciprocity and there being health. And so, yeah, I went way beyond what you asked me.
No, you actually answered exactly what I was asking. So it's perfect. And because one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it was I know your use of the word lead instead of senior is very intentional.
Yes.
So, which I'm having conversations in my own self, but then I've also talked to our mutual friend, Kendall Rothas, here on the channel, a little bit about what it looks like to kind of decentralize the pastor position.
Yeah.
And how can we kind of do that? So I'd love to hear for you, what does lead pastor actually mean?
Yeah. Like I said, I still have so much to learn, and I hope I will continue to improve on it. But I think I first want to say that to be a leader does imply that you're carrying some level of burden that maybe not everyone is. And so to be a lead pastor for me, there are aspects of it that are set apart in the sense of burden.
I think that's a great point, because as a business owner, we talk about, I don't want I would hope that my employees aren't thinking about their job at midnight, but I know I have to.
Yes. It's like CEO shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Because if I go on vacation, I can try my best to delegate certain things, but there's a particular burden that just lives on my shoulders, and it's not really, it can become an ego thing, but if you keep yourself in check, it's really not an ego thing. It's just sort of a different kind of weight. And I remember 4 years ago, I stepped into lead pastor role. I was in an associate role before that. And I remember the first day that I was officially on, I woke up at like 5 a.m. I'm a good sleeper. I don't wake up just for no reason usually. I woke up and I felt, it was spiritual, but it almost felt physical.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
I felt a weight settle on me. And I got my ass up and I got to work, because I was like, whoa. And all that time I had thought to myself, oh, we're sharing it. Like the lead pastor before me, Kyle, we're doing the similar kind of things. We're a team. And we were, that was true. And he carried a particular weight that I didn't understand. Yeah. And I remember thinking, this is new. This is, I just need to build up my muscles, and I can learn to carry this too. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do. But how I describe lead pastor to people is that I'm not trying to center myself or be the face of the organization. I don't preach every week. I try to lean into a team structure. Mm-hmm. But what I'm primarily doing is sort of wading out ahead into the waters. And I'm kind of looking out there and going, what's up? What's happening? What do I need to bring back and report back so that we can envision together? But it's just that wading out ahead that's sort of distinct. Does that make sense?
It does. And I love that, because, in business language, the way that we always say it is, it's my job to make sure you can do your job. And your job is to serve our customers. But my job is to create every single environment possible for you to do your job the best.
Yeah.
And that if you are concentrating, if there's something that you need to do your job and I am not providing it, that's on me. That's my fault. And to me, that's leadership in how I see it, which in a community, I think I'd use that. Like, all I'm doing is I'm trying to get the 360 view here. Who is hurting? What are the possible threats coming at us? What's the knowledge that we need? Where's the kind of holistic health of the organization? And which then means that there are other roles that you don't take on, because we can all do different things. And I think, and we always say too, at the end of the day, there's only a couple of us that can sign checks.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, at some point, somebody has to make a decision.
Right. Yeah.
And you need, as collaborative and egalitarian as things are. And so maybe you trade off decision making, but at some point, if there's a conflict, you need to know who you all look to and go, okay, it's your call.
And it truly is more work to do. I think that's why so many people avoid collaboration.
Oh, it's so much work. Oh my gosh.
Because it is the road less traveled, because you have to spend more energy and more effort to loop people in. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that overall you're creating a healthier and a space where people can thrive more because of it. So it's worth it, but it's a lot. And of course, most churches are small churches. Most churches don't have multiple pastors anyway, but I feel very lucky to get to be in collaboration. It's just my favorite thing.
And it's obvious from the outside, because the stuff that you guys produce is so fruitful and so rich, and so it's really obvious that there's a really great environment there. So I want to switch gears and talk though about the book. So I know, because this came out of nowhere for me, I didn't even know you were writing one, and then all of a sudden it's like, pre-order Aurelia's book. I was like, what? But I'd love to hear at what point you knew it was time to put these things on paper that you've been teaching.
Well, that's a good question. The book started out as me writing stories about my personal experiences with racial trauma. That was where it started. Okay. I was sitting in my kitchen before the sun came up, and I was just writing personal essays. And I knew, okay, this is going to be a book, but I didn't know when. I didn't know if it would get published by a publisher. I didn't know any of that. I just knew to do it. So I was doing that. And then I ended up merging those stories with, a lot of the things that I write about in articles, which do come down to theology and justice, and where that intersects with themes around hierarchy, like white supremacy or patriarchy, and all those things, and really trying to write a book that gave people an entry point into those conversations through storytelling, because I think that we live in such divisive, heated times, such polarizing times, that I could easily go to just rage and write out all my anger and yell at people and point my finger. And sometimes you need to get prophetic, and you need to raise your voice, and you need to be bold. And there's a time and place for that. And I, try to navigate that as well. But in this instance of this book, I was really wanting to share with a lens of compassion my own story, and hope that through that story, people could look within themselves. And maybe if we all tended to our inner work, that could contribute to our collective healing.
I love that. And the stories, are they mostly church-based, or is it your lived experience?
No, it's not really a churchy book at all.
Okay.
I don't talk about, I reference my church, like sometimes, to kind of talk about some memory or something, but it's not a churchy book. I really don't even, honestly, you could be a non-Christian, but spiritual person and really appreciate the book, I think.
Okay.
It's more in the vein of spiritual self-help.
Okay. But the idea of integrating all the parts of our body and our spirit are core to this. Like it's not like a pragmatic how to fight racism book. It's it's
not.
Okay.
It's so funny because, when they're marketing it, when they've got all these keywords, and it's like anti-racism and white supremacy. And I'm like, oh, is that what it's about? I guess it is. Because if you read it, I don't know what it's going to feel like for someone else to take it and read it. But that's the feedback I'm getting, is that those themes are very present and powerful. For me, I'm just like telling my story from one human to another human. And I'm talking about the journey of embracing the fullness of our Imago Dei, which is, the image of God within us. That's what I mean about stepping into your power, is like fully embracing your full divine image within you. And so for me, that's what it's about. But yeah, most of my stories probably have to do with my racial identity and experiences there, but not all of them at all. And some other traumatic experiences, but also like good stories, also empowering stories. But it's very memoir-like.
Okay. I love this though, because one of the things that is a core belief here at Abbey Research is that people don't change their mind through shaming or statistics. They change it through relationships and stories. Yes. And so the best way that we can all move forward is to know more stories.
Yeah.
And integrate more stories into our understanding of the world. And so I really love this. What do you hope people take away from it?
I feel I will feel hopeful and pleased if people are open to just the journey of it. Because I do know that I'm a very compassionate person. One of the themes in my book is like, remember who you are. And, in times of chaos and crisis, like remember what's true about you. And first and foremost, that's Imago Dei for me. And I believe that for everyone. So I know that I'm a compassionate person and that I wrote this compassionate set of stories. And I know that at the same time, there are triggering buzzwords in there for people that, people that don't want to talk about white supremacy or don't want to talk about feminism or, those buzzwords are absolutely in there. And I hope that people will be willing to just open themselves up to the journey and take it, because I really think that there's some really beautiful and powerful truths in there for everybody.
Well, I'm sure there is, because I mean, the kind of writing you're talking about is like opening a vein and spilling it onto paper. And, it's always, when done right, which I know yours will be, it's inviting us into your soul in a way and saying, these are my truths. And I hope for you, they help you see different truths. So whether or not those buzzwords make people uncomfortable, they're still truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really tried to speak to people. It's not like all about me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because that's the other thing. One of the reasons we all resonate with memoirs in so many ways is that whether we read them or watch them or anything else, is that the smallest stories become universal.
Yeah.
So like, even if I don't know, you and I have lived very different lives. They've intersected at different places. But we've lived very different lives, but I know I will see myself in some of your stories.
Well, that makes me so happy. It's hard to know, as a preacher, by default, you're a storyteller, hopefully. And
the good ones are, for sure. Yeah.
I'm always wondering, like, can anyone relate to this? I'm always second guessing whether or not they can, but in my experience, I've been encouraged after the fact. So I'm hoping it works out.
Gosh, we could have an entire conversation about the nature of storytelling and how I wish we had all been trained to do that more in seminary. And like the art and science of storytelling and like what that really means. And because if we really drill down what I do, like I'm preaching sermons, they're just in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
All my TED Talks are structured like Dr. Gregory taught me to structure a sermon. Like, they're all intro, 3 points, and conclusions. They're just in tiny packages.
Yeah. I love that.
So I wish, and people laugh when I get on Clubhouse and they're like, how'd you structure your TED Talk? I'm like my preaching pastor told me to, like my preaching professor told me to. It's the only way I know how to structure anything. So I find that fascinating. I'm so excited for this book. Because one of the things that so first of all, I love that your spirit is of fierce gentleness.
Aww.
And it's if anyone ever asks me like why gentleness isn't weakness, there's a couple people that come to mind, and you're always one of them.
Oh my gosh. I need to like, can you write that in an email and send it to me? Because I will put that in my encouragement folder.
Good. You should, because it's so
Wow.
I don't feel like I am a gentle person. I have a lot of other qualities, but that's not one of the fruits of the
I
spirit.
don't feel like I'm gentle, so I'm loving this.
But I think and maybe it could be like, to me, that's who you are, and maybe you aren't in other spaces, but to me, when I think about who you've been in my life and who you are in my life, it's like this always gentle reminder of a call back to the feminine God, and a call back to this level of theology. And so I'm really excited for other people to experience that and be able to see. Before I let you go though, what I'd really love is a little bit of unpacking on, if you've now been a pastor for 10 years, and being a woman pastor full stop is a shit show, and doing it in Texas is a whole other layer of things. How have you seen any evolution in the last 10 years? Do you feel more settled in it? Do you think it's still a struggle? Like, can you talk a little bit about that?
I mean, there's always aspects that are a struggle. Those have always existed in the 10 years. Things like, not really getting included in like community association type things, not getting asked to do the same things that my precursor, like the person before me who
happened to be a man, got to do.
But people always think I'm married to someone. They're like looking for my husband, and I mean, I am married, but he's not a pastor. I'm just a pastor on my own.
He is both consequential to your life and inconsequential to your job.
There are things like that. There are things like the realities that even in your own congregation, it's still hard for men to accept a woman pastor. Like, they accept it in theory and hypothetics, but not in the action of how they turn around and serve the church all the time. Okay. Some do, some don't, but there's not someone for them to be like bros with.
Got it. Okay. Especially if they've grown up in the church, they have this picture like you should be able to play golf and talk football with your pastor. Yeah.
So there's those barriers, but I feel like what energizes me is seeing so many more women pastors than I did 10 years ago.
That's so good to hear.
It's so amazing. I mean, even in our own community, there's several ordained women there. And, when I was first coming up in that church and starting it, and for the first several years and getting ordained myself, I was always alone in that. So I love having other badass women around me, and we energize each other and we empower each other. And it just doesn't feel like it's so rare. I forget that it's a rare thing because I feel so surrounded by people doing similar work.
I love that, because there's other female clergy members that I've talked to that still feel that isolation because their part of the world isn't there yet.
Sure.
But I'm always glad to be able to tell them like, hey, but in other places it's gotten better. Like it's, not to steal the Trevor Project's line, but like it can get better. We can do this. And we can grow these ranks. And I think I'm really encouraged to hear that. I'm glad you don't feel as lonely as you once did.
Yeah, I love it. And then of course, like just social media, and that has there's downsides, but the upside has just been like, wow, there are so many people doing good work, and now I'm connected to them, and that's awesome.
Yeah. And speaking of that, a fairly prominent media outlet just named you one of the 12 voices in 2022 that people should be listening to by Sojourners Magazine. I want to call that out, that I am not the only person that thinks Aurelia is a beautiful genius. Sojourners does as well. And we'll be linking the article to her profile in the show notes. So
yeah, that was a surprise. But it's just a good validation.
Yeah.
Who doesn't
love being validated?
It's just, I do feel like I think in their words, it's people shaping the church, or women shaping the church.
Women shaping the church. Yeah. Yeah.
And I do feel like that is exactly what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I don't stand alone. There's people around me doing that as well. And no one can accomplish much alone. But yeah, that's like the passion of my life. That's what the work I've been doing. And so, yeah, it just was exciting.
I'm so glad. Cause yeah, when I think of the way that you guys at Peace of Christ and with the podcast with Brittany and like some of the other things that you've been doing, you're trying to shove some of the walls of traditional understandings of this aside and really say, how can we reimagine what spiritual community can look like and function like in some very still traditional kind of areas of the world?
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I call myself a paradigm shifter. That's my vocation. So that's not easy work. So
no, it's exhausting. We're trying to do the same thing on another couple topics, and I mean, a paradigm shift means you've got to agitate, and agitate means a lot of work. So, but I'm really excited that you're on it, that you're doing this work, because I think it's some really important stuff. So, Aurelia, we're going to hit pause here to honor your time. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our audience with?
I don't think so. I will say, like, if you see this and you're on Instagram, I don't mean to be a weirdo, but like, go follow me there, because that is my favorite space right now. Because I'm doing this thing where I am trying to very consistently put out some what I call spoken word exegesis. So I'm trying to reimagine theology over there through spoken word, and I'm excited about it. So I'm trying to kind of point people that way if they're interested in tuning into that.
Amazing. And we'll put that link directly in the show notes, so you guys don't have to worry about finding it or Googling it. So just pull up the description of the video and you can hit that. We'll hot link that directly. So thanks so much, Aurelia, for joining me.
Thank you. I loved it.
Pals, if you have enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate if you give it a thumbs up, because then the algorithm will tell more people to watch it. If you like the spirit of the video and you like learning things about the world, my channel might be a really good place for you. Not only do I get to have these kind of conversations, but Dr. Aaron and I talk about how to be fuller and richer humans in a whole host of areas, including how to decolonize our understandings of the world with something called the Colonizers World Tour, where we spend a week in a different country every week and figure out how colonization is still impacting them and what we can learn from that, including watching some of their indigenously produced art, so that we don't get the American lens on their country, we get their lens on their country. It's one of our favorite projects, and we'd love to have you join us on it. So again, like the video, subscribe, or, as we always say, do the YouTube-y things. All the ways to get in touch with Aurelia, including pre-ordering her book or ordering it if you're watching this after September 22, is going to be in the show notes, so that you can make sure to hit that. My guest has been the Reverend Aurelia Pratt, one of the exciting voices moving in the church. If you are somebody who has never experienced church or faith the way that we've talked about it, we promise you that this is a piece of it as well as all the other damaging and problematic and troubling things about the church. There's this piece too. And a lot of us are trying to birth more of the hopeful, healthy pieces. And we'd love to have you join us in that venture as well. My name is Dr. Kristen Donnelly. This series is Welcome to My World. Again, my guest has been Aurelia Pratt, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.